Hello there, kia ora. So, Labor finally locked down a capital gains tax policy, huh? Brilliant. And that's going to help fund 3 free GP visits a year for everybody. Even better. And they've announced it almost a year out from the election, which gives the public plenty of time to understand the policy and realise that it doesn't touch the family home, farms, shares, business assets, personal items, KiwiSaver, or inheritance. Those are the areas most often vilified by the current government and media narratives when it comes to implementing a CGT, and this takes it off the table going into the election year. It's a solid Labour policy in that people on the right are going to vilify it because it's being mean to rich people, and people further on the left will have wanted it to go harder. In a way, it's a clever move to get in and undercut the narratives that right-wing governments have dominated with on the topic. For example, the National Party posted this fear-mongering post a couple of hours after the announcement, insinuating Labour's announcement would impact people's businesses and KiwiSaver. But not only is there no evidence of this, it's been specifically ruled out in the announcement. In fact, the overriding theme of National's attacks so far have been tax is bad, which is a reductive outlook that ignores that our tax system is in need of an overhaul. From the government that cancelled the IRD report into tax inequity, efficiency and certainty under urgency when they first got into power so no one could see how much the ultra-wealthy were avoiding paying taxes. And of course, as the news sets in, the media is also slightly changing their framing to try and match that to the right-wing narrative that we're seeing after a morning full of headlines that seem to genuinely celebrate this announcement. And being one of the few OECD countries without a CGT, that has long been seen as a solid first step to change, and it would be the same corporate flat tax rate that other businesses are already paying. Even the IMF has called for it to happen to strengthen our tax system. It's treating property investments as a business instead of an unregulated way to build wealth without productivity, which is a system that's really hard to get into if you don't have the assets or funds to do so when you begin this process. And the data points to this policy actually mirroring the views of majority of New Zealanders on CGT. This Reed Research poll data from September this year showed that more New Zealanders supported a CGT than opposed it, as long as it didn't impact family homes, businesses or farms. From a cold, calculated perspective, a CGT makes sense, but it is an issue that has for years been ramped up and vilified by successive right-wing governments, indoctrinating some members of the public to believe that it must be a bad thing, while they themselves will most likely never be impacted by it. And the government responses, they've been predictable. Nicola Willis, the beneficiary of a trust actually that holds 3 non-family home properties according to the Register of Pecuniary Interests in Parliament, and the current finance minister who spent $500 million on no boats borrowed to pay for tax cuts, gave tax breaks to tobacco companies, and was laughed at on Q&A by Jack Tame when she showed up with a one-page spreadsheet claiming it was the National Party's fully costed financial plan and wouldn't totally tank the economy or lead to higher inflation, despite what a raft of economists told her, has said that this is a terrible idea. That's like having the shark in Jaws try and tell you that you should just keep swimming with that bleeding cut. What's the worst that could possibly happen? And it makes sense that the party that came in and changed the Bright Line test, with the Prime Minister directly benefiting from that change, the party full of property investors. Mount Roskill MP Carlos Cheong, he owns 5 properties. Mark Mitchell owns 3. Tim Costley owns 2, and Carl Bates is the beneficiary of a property trust that owns 25. That they would see this as bad for themselves. And it's been this way for a while. Back in 2021, analysis showed that the value of the top 14 MPs' property investments, all then National Party members, was more than the bottom 30 MPs' property value combined, and that they made more money in property valuation changes than they did on an MP's salary. And yes, some of those property valuations included farms, but a large chunk of that was investment portfolios. And David Seymour has said that the policy is divisive. The issue isn't that the government has no money, it's that it spends it on the wrong things. Well, the Prime Minister last week told striking government workers that it would pay more if the money was there, but the country is broke apparently. Even New Zealand First jumped on the any CGT is bad bandwagon, despite the same Reed Research I mentioned before showing over half of New Zealand First supporters support having a CGT. So the most capable to pay people looking to have to pay the most under a CGT, which would impact less than 10% of people while benefiting every New Zealander with free primary medical care. The same people impacted are also controlling the current laws and settings which they benefit from, which for some reason isn't considered a conflict of interest under current parliamentary laws. They don't seem to like this, which sure does seem like a good reason to give it some serious consideration for its merits. And there's plenty of time between now and the election to get our heads around what is actually a really simple policy. After all, even Australians have a CGT, and if they can get their heads around it, we should have no problems. And there's even record numbers of New Zealanders moving over there knowing that they have a CGT in place. So the real question is going to be, does the coalition think that you're smart enough to understand it, or are they going to assume that you're dumb enough to fall for their misleading, vilifying social media slogans and not look into it yourself? Oh, hey, thanks for getting to the end of the video here on Facebook. While you're here, why not hit that subscribe button so you can be kept up to date with other things that I do. Scientists tell me it'll make you 27% smarter, so why wouldn't you?